So for my speech, I picked Samuel Gomper's "What Does the Working Man Want?" And I did this because not only is it one of the most iconic speeches, but the way in which it's delivered gives an incredibly simplistic yet personal view on the issues that are happening. And this is not only because of where the speech is delivered, but also because of who Samuel Gompers, who wrote the speech, the way he wrote it, and also because of the time period. So I only was able to read a couple of paragraphs, but the reason I picked these paragraphs ties into the reason I picked this document. So the first paragraph talks about people who have come before and stood up for this idea. So in the first paragraph, he talks about the idea that everyone's coming together, that the toilers of all cities and all states are coming together, and all across the world are coming together. And this, like I said, this was given in a specific state. It was given May 1st of 1890 on his 8-hour workday campaign. So he's talking to an audience who chooses to be there, and he's convincing them pretty much to join the labor movement and also to support his cause if they already are, and to continue supporting it. And he does this really well in the first paragraph by adding a personal aspect, by thanking people, greeting people like as friends. He says that. And he also is able to create not only himself, but groups that other people can sympathize with and relate to. So from any angle, you can support this movement, no matter if you're not American, if you're not from Chicago, if you're not exactly a toiler, you can defy manifestos. So that first intro paragraph is a big step in the way that he defines his ideas, and also comes at it with a more of a personal view, which we see in the second paragraph. So the second paragraph, directly after it, talks about the stereotypes that the laborers have to work against as to why this labor movement hasn't worked so far. So he addresses this idea that labor movement hasn't worked so far because people have been asking for 8-hour workdays for a long time, but labor factory owners, and factory owners in general have been giving answers like, oh, if you were able to have this more time, you would basically just get drunk or do things that would be not as good as and not as productive as working. And Samuel Gompers really clarifies the answer that I think laborers can agree with, and says that really those who get drunk are those who don't have enough, those have too much time because they don't have work and don't have money, and those who have too much money and too much time. And so by giving them a fair amount of hours, they would have work and not too much time, and they wouldn't get drunk. And he identifies the stereotype, and he talks about it. This really opens the path so people can understand why it hasn't worked, and talks about the more personal aspects that haven't always been talked about in this movement, other than like the demands. And these stereotypes make it so it's a more human feel of the speech. The third paragraph was the conclusion, so I skipped to the bottom. Even though there was a ton of incredible writing in between, I skipped to the bottom, the conclusion, because it's so nicely able to talk about what he wants, not only personally, but the AFL, because he's the president of the AFL at the time, and what he wants from this movement and in this campaign and as a union. So he talks about more permanent pay, better conditions, so 8 hours of work, and more permanent wages. More permanent wages, jobs, and better conditions. And he does this by not only saying it, but relating it to why they want it. So talking about stereotypes, and also talking about how working is not only just work, but the soul of a man, and really trying to make it so it's something that anyone can empathize with, and any person knows that like who they are, but it's better able to put themselves in the shoes of a laborer who they might just identify as a worker and a product of what they produce. So he's really able to humanize these ideas, and also at the same time sum up what he wants in these 3 points from factory owners. And I performed in this way because not only is it an incredibly powerful speech, but it's also, like I said before, Samuel Gomper was involved in unions. He's been working at this pretty much his whole life. He was an immigrant, and then he started working at making cigars, and becoming a union member, and then a president of the AFL. Now he has this platform, and he's talking about things that he's experienced, and he's also talking to people who are here to listen to it, and he's trying to convince people to join his campaign. So though I'm not impersonating Samuel Gompers, I'm interpreting this to be an incredibly heartfelt speech, and I decided to give it in that way. So I was incredibly passionate about the ideas, really attempting to not only humanize them and give different pauses so readers and audience members could accept that I too acknowledge these things and these phrases meaning. But also, I was super passionate when I was saying what I wanted, so it could be understood that I was not just a face, but I was someone who was also fighting the same battle. So yeah. Also, Samuel Gompers, we know he was an incredibly good public speaker. He joined the debate club when he was young. So like I said, I'm not impersonating him, but interpreting what the speech was written for. It was written in a way with a lot of, the punctuation was written for dramatic pause and larger points. So that's why I was so persuasive with it and so passionate on this issue that he was trying to convince people of. Yeah, amazing speech. Thank you so much for this opportunity.